Space, the final conquest. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its continuing mission, to discover and subjugate strange new worlds, to advance our dominion and vanquish all who stand against us, to conquer the galaxy for the glory of the Empire.
Welcome to this episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Odd One Out. This is your host Mark, and today, as often we do with the Odd One Out, I'm doing Star Trek. Now, this one is actually quite a little weird side alley of Star Trek, and the reason I'm going down it, I'm blaming it squarely on Mike from Chinstroker vs. Punter, who talked about this whenever at some point when he was talking about Star Trek. Wasn't aware of it at all, and I was like getting through the Star Trek Next Generation series. It ended on, last one I did was end of season 5, but then after hearing Mike talk about this particular thing, I felt I had to at least give it a look. And it is Star Trek Continues. It's a fan sort of web-based series set in the Star Trek universe, and it's a direct sequel, continuation of Star Trek the original series, continuing the 5-year mission. Star Trek the original series finished after 3 seasons, so as far as we're concerned, we were 3 years into the 5 years, but they continue it on. It was produced over 11 episodes between 2013 and 2017, and the actual 5-year mission is properly resolved at the end of this, which is very nice. The look and feel of this series is amazing. I'm glad Mike recommended it, because just looking at the first episode, and all of these are online, by the way, on YouTube, it really, really does look like the original series, and it feels like the original series. They've done a pretty good job, and the more I watched, the more I liked it. I was uncertain at first, but it kind of improved. It grew on me, for sure, as time went on. Now, it is specifically non-commercial, which means that's one of the reasons it's available on the web, but it's also the reason they got permission to sort of reuse and redo the look and feel of the original series. So we have all the characters we expect: Kirk, Spock, Scotty, McCoy, and so on. There's one extra Sulu, Uhura, Chekhov, and so on. There's one other cast member that wasn't in the original, which is a Ship's Counselor. They're doing a new program for Ship's Counselor, so this one is the Ship's Counselor, kind of forerunner to Troy, I guess. Her name is McKenna, Elise McKenna. So those are the main actors. I had trouble settling into this at first. I was particularly bothered a little by the guy playing Kirk, who looks like him, but just his voice intonations were just off for me. But as it went on, it grew on me, for sure. I quite liked, all the way through, the guy playing Chekhov. He didn't have much of a part in the first few, but he really grew on me. The rest of them were pretty good. Grant Imahara, who unfortunately died recently, played Sulu in it, and he was pretty good Sulu. We got Chris Doohan's plays Scott, and that's James Doohan's son, so that's quite the catch. And he's done a lot of online Star Trek Online stuff voicing Scotty, so he's kind of familiar with it. And we have 2 actors playing McCoy, both of them pretty decent. Larry Nemechek in the series episodes 1 and 2. Nemechek's a sort of Star Trek expert and author of Star Trek Next Generation Companion, so he knows his Star Trek. And then Chuck Huber took over from that point. And Todd Haberkorn does the rather difficult role of Spock. Does it very well. I think he's 3%. And Vic, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce this. It's Mignogna, so we're going to say Vic Mignogna. I'm not quite sure as Kirk. Interesting. Right, I'm just going to go briefly episode by episode, give my thoughts. And a lot of these episodes are mirrors of or sequels or riffing on existing original series episodes. Kind of interesting. I thought that was a really good idea. And the first one is Pilgrim of Eternity, which is a direct sequel to an episode called Who Mourns for Adonai, which is The one about the Greek gods, who are being super powerful aliens. The one from that rings a bell. That's the one. It's okay. And the man who played Apollo in that original episode is back. Michael Forrest is reprising his role. Obviously, he's an old man now, but it was quite a bold choice to bring him back. And it kind of worked. I was kind of on the fence with this first episode. I wasn't quite sure about James doing a Scotty. It felt like quite a bad Scottish impression, but he grew on me, and I was fine with it after this episode. But this particular episode, it kind of bothered me. I think they were kind of settling in, maybe. And also, it's kind of interesting that I should have mentioned they do bring in some Star Trek alumni here and there through various episodes. For example, in some episode, Marina Sirtis voices the computer, as she does in this particular episode, and in other episodes, Michael Dorn voices the computer. So that's kind of interesting. But there's other Star Trek alumni and general sci-fi alumni appearing through this. As I felt in this episode, the acting wasn't great, but it was okay, and they definitely improved. But man, they definitely got the look. I would not base your opinion on this first episode. If you were to watch this, I would watch more than one. I'd give it a bit of time and sort of settle into it. So at this point, I remember watching it thinking, okay, I'm going to give it a few more, and if it doesn't work out, okay, I'll just drop it and get back to Next Generation. Second episode was Lilani. I really like this episode. This actually caught me quite well. They get the look and feel of the original, as they do for every episode, actually. And then there's also a guest spot for Erin Gray, who plays Commodore Gray. Erin Gray is famous for playing Wheelma in Buck Rogers' 25th Century. Beautiful woman, quite a good actress. She was good in this. And also stars Lou Ferrigno, who played the Incredible Hulk, who's kind of green again. And he's really good, actually. He plays this sort of brutish, thuggish Orion slave trader who acts all like worldly and cool when he's with humans, but he's a brute, basically. And then the actress playing Lilani is pretty good. Lilani is this sort of girl who's consigned back to slavery. This is a very Trek episode. It's dealing with issues and themes of freedom and slavery and stuff like that. But again, I kind of had trouble with the Kirk in this one specifically. I had a bit of problems with him, which actually resolved in the next episode. So again, if you just get to this one, you maybe you have the same problems, maybe you don't, but I'd say stick for the first three, right? Episode 3 is called The Fairest of Them All, which I enjoyed quite a bit. It's a direct and a properly direct sequel to the original series Mirror Mirror, the Mirror Universe one with the beardy Spock. That one, a good episode. And it's a direct episode. In fact, they riff on the end. They basically recreate the scene from the end of that episode and start this episode with it. So this particular episode is set entirely in the Mirror Universe, and there's even a different speech at the end about how they go out to conquer and stuff like that. This is quite an interesting alternative version of Space the Final Frontier. I quite like it. I might even play at the beginning of this episode just to give you guys a feel. Now, the actor playing Kirk plays evil Kirk in this one, a right fascist, and actually he does a better job. I think he really embraces evil Kirk and does a really quite good job as Kirk. And at this point, it was from this point on that I took to this actor as Kirk and had no problems after this. Kirk was a right dick in this one, and the Spock character was one who had evolved and saw the pointlessness of you trying to use fear as a way of controlling the Terran Empire. I felt it was time had come to stop trying to do that. So Spock's the rebellion one. And it's kind of interesting to see how the different characters, the Spock, the Sulu, the Scotty, the McCoy, how they align to the bad guy Kirk or the good guy Spock throughout the episode. There was some interesting. I don't want to spoil it anymore, but this one was really good. I really liked this. Episode 4 is The White Iris. And this one was a bit touchy-feely for me. This is Kirk exploring his guilt and pain at the various people that had died while he was in command, and the various women more actually about the women he'd loved and lost over the various mission. We see, for example, Edith Keeler from the character of Edith Keeler, City on the Edge of Forever, that famous episode played by Jen Collins in that episode, and Miramani from the Paradise, to name a few. There's more because it's Kirk, right? But it's kind of going through his problem. The problem is the episode's a little all forgiveness and saccharine and not my real cup of tea. However, I did like the final scene. I'm not going to expand more than that, even though it was very, very saccharine. It was, but I still liked it. There was also a guest appearance by Colin Baker, the sixth Doctor Who, as a slightly hysterical alien leader whose planet is kind of doomed. Because Kirk's issues means he forgot a password for a planetary shield, which is a terrible plot device. Them not figuring out and getting the proper password from Starfleet was ridiculous because they're just waiting for Kirk to get better or whatever, feel better. I didn't like that plot device either. But there was, as I say, I like the final scene. The next episode was episode 5, Divided We Stand. By some sci-fi hokum, Kirk and McCoy find themselves in the American Civil War on opposing sides because like a prisoner soldier, but he's also a doctor, so they use him as a doctor. The main surgeon in the battlefield says, I don't care what side he's on, he's helping. And they're also concerned that by being there, they're going to affect history. There is an interesting little... scene in this where a guy asks who he is, and he says, I'm James Kirk, and the sergeant says, from the 10th Reserve, Pennsylvania Reserves, and he says, yep. I guess, I thought you were a lieutenant colonel. Now that's interesting, and looking into it, there was a James T. Kirk who was a lieutenant colonel in the 10th Pennsylvania Reserves who fought in the Civil War. So how about that? That's kind of a nice little callback. So obviously they're concerned about they may affect history. Again, this is kind of an indirect callback to City on the Edge of Forever, and they get to explore what they do and how people's actions can echo through history. There's all that kind of stuff. So that was an interesting one. Yeah, I liked it. Episode 6 was Come Not Between the Dragons. This was very original series in its premise, where basically a very, very odd alien life form infiltrates the ship and then starts affecting the behaviour of the crew quite drastically. It's kind of an amalgam of Devil in the Dark, it's that kind of alien, and A Naked Time, where the crew start acting weird. I quite enjoyed it. There was a fist fight between two female crew members, which is quite fun, and there were some very good effects. So yeah, it was alright. Yeah, didn't mind it at all. Very original series, as I say, in film. Episode 7 was Embracing the Winds. This is one that deals with kind of institutional sexism and what to do about it. So we're much more into next gen territory here, and it's a bit dull, dramatically speaking. I've not got an issue with what they were trying to tackle, but it was a little dull to watch. There was also some drama about a ship blowing up and rescuing borrowed time, and Chekhov was a major character. I really, as I mentioned, I did like Chekhov in this actor playing Chekhov, and this is where one of the episodes where Chekhov has a more significant role, and I thought he was a good standout, and I liked it. This Chekhov, so Embracing the Winds. Right, episode 8 was Still Treads the Shadow. Again, we're in a slightly little dull-worthy. It has its moments. This one has basically 3 different versions of Kirk coexisting, each with their own issues and motivations and reasons to be there. And it feels a bit old-fashioned now it's handled. It does feel a bit clunky. It would have been clunky in the 60s. Never mind about now. It's not great, but it's all right. Let's put it that way. Episode 9 was What Ships Are For. This is an interesting one. Where they're on a planet, goes down to a planet, and it's in black and white, which is weird. And basically, they identified they got there's radiation, certain type of radiation, which neutralises the colour seeing cells in your eyes, so you can only see in black and white. And it feels a bit like a bit of a gimmick, but actually, it turns out by the end to be quite central to the plot. I really like this one. John DeLance is in it as the actor that plays Q, original Battlestar Galactica. And I have to say, both actors are really giving it some, and they give really good performances. I honestly, hand on heart, cannot remember a better performance by Delancey. And I like Don Delancey. He camps up sometimes, but he can be a good actor. But in this, he's not camping up. He is being a good actor. But they're both very good, and Delancey is a real standout. It's a story about immigrants and what they bring to society. And, you know, we don't want them versus we need them, all that kind of stuff, which is kind of quite important. Not important, quite significant in the current times we live in. But it's an interesting one. I thought this was a very, very solid episode. They're really improving at this point, I have to say. Which brings us to the last two. They are a one long story, episode 10 and 11, which are called To Boldly Go 1, To Boldly Go 2. This is top tier. It's an excellent finish to the original series. It's way better than the final episode of the original series episode, which was, I think, Turnabout Intruder. Way better. It also ties up the beginning of the series, events from the beginning of the series, an episode called Where No Man Has Gone Before, in a nice way. And it also takes time to show how the voyage, the 5 years, has affected the main leads, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. And it's this one that made me realise it was a good choice. It was an excellent choice to watch this series. This is really the Jordan Crown. I'd say this is one of the great Star Trek episodes. That's how much I liked it. I can't recommend this episode enough to any Trekkie. And then given that, I have to say I have to recommend the whole series to any Trekkie. It's all there on YouTube. You can catch it all. I'd suggest watch them all. I mean, they're pretty fun, and it is a bit of a blast from the past watching these current day actors sort of giving it their all in what looks exactly like the original series. Are really, really cool. And special props to the actor that played Kirk, because not only was he playing Kirk, but he was actually involved in quite some of the more interesting and significant stories. He came out with some of the stories. He had some of the ideas. He was a good ideas man. So, very interesting, creative person. One to watch, I'd say, as well. So, props. I really like Star Trek Continues. So, thanks, Mike, from Chin Striker vs. Partner, for actually put it on my radar, and after this I will be going back to Next Generation Season 6, so we'll be back on track for more traditional and straightforward Star Trek after this one. So, bye from me.
Star trekking across the universe
on the Starship Enterprise under Captain Kirk.
Star trekking across the universe,
Slowly going forward 'cause we can't find rebirth.
Lieutenant, report.
There's Klingons on the starboard bow, starboard bow, starboard bow. There's Klingons on the starboard bow, Jim.
Analysis. Mr. Spock.
it's life, Jim, but not as we know it, not as we know it, not as we know it. It's life, Jim, but not as we know it, not as we know it, Captain.
There's Klingons on the starboard bow, starboard bow, starboard bow. There's Klingons on the starboard bow, Jim.
Star trekking across the universe,
On the Starship Enterprise under Captain Kirk.
Star trekking across the universe.
Slowly going forward, still can't find rebirth.
Medical update. Dr. McCoy.
It's worse than that. He's dead, Jim. Dead, Jim. Dead, Jim. It's worse than that. He's dead, Jim. Dead, Jim. Dead.
It's life, Jim, but not as we know it, not as we know it, not as we know it. It's life, Jim, but not as we know it, not as we know it, Captain.
There's Klingons on the starboard bow, starboard bow, starboard bow. There's Klingons on the starboard bow, Jim.
Starship Captain James T. Kirk.
Ah, we come in peace, shoot to kill, shoot to kill, shoot to kill. We come in peace, shoot to kill, men.
It's worse than that. He's dead, Jim. Dead, Jim. Dead, Jim. It's worse than that. He's dead, Jim. Dead, Jim. Dead.
Well, it's life, Jim, but not as we know it, not as we know it, not as we know it. It's life, Jim, but not as we know it, not as we know it, Captain.
There's Klingons on the starboard bow, starboard bow, starboard bow.
across the universe.
On the Starship Enterprise under Captain Kirk.
Star trekking across the universe.
Slowly going forward as things are getting worse.
Engine room. Mr. Scott.
You cannot change the laws of physics. Laws of physics. Laws of physics. You cannot change the laws of physics. Laws of physics, Jim.
Oh, we come in peace. Shoot to kill, shoot to kill, shoot to kill. We come in peace. Shoot to kill. Scotty, beam me up.
It's worse than that. He's dead, Jim. Dead, Jim. Dead, Jim. It's worse than that. He's dead, Jim. Dead, Jim. Dead.
Well, it's life, Jim, but not as we know it. Not as we know it. Not as we know it. It's life, Jim, but not as we know it. Not as we know it, Captain.
There's Klingons on the starboard bow, starboard bow, starboard bow. There's Klingons on the starboard bow, starboard bow.
You cannot change the script, Jim. Up to you, Jimmy.
It's worse than that. It's physics, Jim.
Bridge to engine room.